dark. Bad things grow in the dark, and we need to look at them. Beautiful things grow in the dark too, and those we need to tend to. So then you had a question. I was just staying with your question because what you asked has so much wisdom in it. But repeat for me what you'd like. What would you like to hear from me? Because I'm just
So
amplifying wisdom.
yes, so how we can
Yes.
open
Yeah.
ourselves to maybe even possibility to look into our nightmares, or transform them into something else, like take the wisdom, because let's be honest, it's much easier to do it with the regular nice or neutral dream, but it's so hard to do it with the nightmare. So do you find that the journaling, the keeping the dream journal, maybe could be sort of like even the first step of acknowledging that this is our experience right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So how do we do it? So let's get real practical, right? So often when we have a nightmare, the last thing we want to do is write it down. We want to go to the bathroom, put some cold water on our face, wash it away. It was only a dream. Let me go back to sleep. And we get to do that sometimes because it's hard work facing a nightmare. So we need to, number one, acknowledge that it's hard work and it takes courage. So starting real simple right there, like I'm going to do this very courageous thing and I am going to write this down, but to acknowledge that that's hard and give yourself some credit, be gentle and loving with
Very
yourself.
important. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then to remember, which I'm sure that this is a message that you repeat and that each of your colleagues who you're speaking with are repeating, we must remember that all the nightmares come in service of our health, healing, and wholeness. We must have faith in that. That is an act of faith because it does not feel that way when you get shaken awake with a nightmare. Okay. But if you can remind yourself that somewhere in here, there's help, that's going to make it a little bit easier and give you more motivation to stay with it long enough to write it down. Okay. So then, the nightmare has given your nervous system a jolt. It's given your nervous system a mini trauma or an actual trauma. It's really scary. Your body experiences it as real.
Yeah.
So any comfort you can give yourself, any comfort you can give yourself is important. If you have a pet or a person to hug, a blanket to wrap around yourself, anything loving you can do for yourself that you need, teddy bear, whatever it is, please take advantage of that. All this because you're going to do some work from here. And the work is to stay with this nightmare for long enough to find what is its helpful message for you, right?
Mm.
Can I add one more thing about what to do? I'm still on the sort of right away moment,
Yes,
you
of
just
course.
woken up for it. So I'm a big believer in before I can even think about it, just bypass that and bring love and light to it. So
Oh, okay. Can
yeah,
you expand on that?
yeah, this can be hard, but it's an important shift. So first of all, if I'm in a nightmare and I know and I realize that I have any degree of consciousness or lucidity, my first step is to call on love. I just say, I call on love. I just start saying that in the dream if I can. I call on love, I call on love, I call on love. For some people, that might be I call on, name of a deity or a spirit guide, but whatever it is, whatever's pure love
Yeah.
for you, call on it. And if you don't get to do that in the dream, start doing it as soon as you wake up. I call on love, I surround myself in love. Maybe picture the characters in the dream, the setting of the dream surrounded by love and light, and just bring in love any way that you possibly can. I think that does something spiritually and energetically. I think it starts to bring the healing before. And even if we never figure out what the healing message is, I think doing that energetic wrap, that energetic healing before we even have any logic to go with it, starts to do the work. We don't have to really figure it out. But I like to try when I'm ready, but not right at first. Right at first, those are steps that I recommend.
Okay, and so let's say we did just that, what you said. We kind of managed to bring this loving presence, or at least a little bit of light to the situation, and comforted ourselves in one way or another. And then is the part of writing it down comes, or there is something else?
I don't think there's a formula, so to speak.
Of
These
course,
are
but
people could take in any order, but yes, writing it down as soon as you're able. You know, in the Jewish tradition of dream work, it's said, I think it's in the Talmud, I probably should have looked it up before I came on, that you're to tell the dream to people immediately. I think it's 3 people you should tell the dream to.
oh,
and get a positive interpretation. That's very important. So in my version of that, my journal's the first person that I tell.
yeah, and not always we have actually a person. And also I think that that's why also I believe that the journaling could be sort of a middleman, in a way, like maybe if you're not really ready to share it, maybe if you cannot speak the words, maybe because they're too terrifying, or you just don't want to because you have the right. So writing it down, as you said, it's like sharing it with
Yeah,
your journal.
yeah,
And it also, I with writing, what I feel is that it's not the same to just think about something all the time and put it on paper. Like there is this magic, or even on your phone, even if it's not paper, because there is something about taking it out of your system. Like, can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
yeah. And thank you also for bringing up the technology. Speaking it into your phone even is a
Yeah.
good first step. Speaking it into a voice memo or talk to text, because it can be hard to write it down. I agree. There is magic in that. There's empowerment in that, because the nightmare, anything that we're trying to avoid, the worst part of it is not saying it, and writing it down is definitely a form of saying it, because now we're in the powerful position.
Mm.
You know, we are starting to take power from it and take power into our hands. So the beautiful thing about writing in your journal is, and it's the same with recording it, I'll just use the old school language because I'm a little bit old school, although I use
That's
all the
great. That's
technology too.
perfect.
I use it all. But when you're writing, you're in charge. You can take it as slow as you need to. You can
Mm.
pick up the pen and rest when you need to. So it's very empowering, you know, to be the one saying it or writing it. Now you're starting to have some agency here.
Oh, I never thought about it this way, but it's so true. Like you are in charge. The moment you take the pen or you open your phone, like as you said, you are now the owner. You are owning it. Wow, that's really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And then once you start looking at it, so there are a couple of directions I'll offer to add to the wisdom you've been collecting. One direction I like to take when I'm ready, first, is just to get it down as best you can. And even there's things to know. So there have been studies that have shown in regular journaling, not necessarily dream journaling, but
Yeah.
writing down nightmares, traumatic situations, situations of abuse or physical harm, any kind of trauma you've been through, that when you write it down in detail, in the physical sensory details, that is more the most healing. That brings
Mm.
healing. They say if you can write about a situation for several days, even if it's just for 4, 5, 7 minutes a day, and you put down the details, as many as you can remember, that helps. I haven't seen a study of that with writing down nightmares, but I assume it's the same. So
Yeah,
again, go as slow as you need to. And even if you do it a few minutes a day, you know, take it in small chunks, but see if you can get the details down.
yeah, it kind of makes sense. Like when you add more and more details, it's like you're releasing more and more out of the system, right? I would imagine that if I describe something in more details and bring bring all of the information on the paper, it's like I'm releasing like all of it. I don't know if this is exactly the correlation, but for me, intuitively, that was maybe.
I like it. That makes a lot of sense to me. Another thing, if it's too hard to write, because it can be so scary. Just to put it in context, I had a nightmare once. It took me 5 years to say out loud. I just couldn't.
That's exactly what I said. Like some nightmares,
Yeah.
and I really loved what you said, to be very gentle with ourselves and encouraging ourselves and giving ourselves a credit, because maybe this conversation seemed like, oh, we just talk about nightmares as if it was easy. But I also said it in the previous talks, but I will say it one more time, that it is not easy. It is necessary, but it's not easy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's why I use that sort of, I don't know if you call it an image or a metaphor of the spiritual warrior. I mean, it is a type of training. It's a type of building oneself up through practice. It's a kind of going into a spiritual battle, but with a healing intention and a healing framework. So another thing that can help to write down the scariest ones is to shift from I to he or she, whatever your pronoun is. So to tell it as in the third person, so to speak.
As an observer.
Yeah, can help you to get it out and get it down if you can't quite put it in the I quite yet.
Yeah, I think also Dr. Leslie Ellis mentioned that when we bring the dream back, it's like from one side we do want to, as you said, to keep the details and bring it back, but also at the same time to try to take the perspective kind of the observer, because we don't want to re-traumatize ourselves. And that's why, as you said, to take it on the face that you are comfortable with, to do it in the manner that you're comfortable with, because the last thing you want is that you will relive the nightmare in a way that it will re-traumatize you. So it's very important that maybe this approach, as I'm an observer, so I'm just watching what is happening in this dream, can be a safer option if the nightmare was extremely traumatizing or so scary that you can't put the I, as you said. Yeah. And then what would you do with this nightmare? Yeah.
So once I've written it down, we do all the things that we do with dream work. We look at the characters, the images, the setting, to see if we can get any handle on what those aspects reveal about the dream, what our personal associations are with them. Another little twist that I like to take, which is a challenging step, is to say, in a homeopathic dose, in order to help me find the healing here, a homeopathic dose. So with homeopathic medicine, they take the littlest, teeniest molecular drop of a plant or something and put it into this potion.
Yes.
So that little bit of a dose, what could be helpful or healing here? So I'll give a couple of examples. Yes, because please. Somebody will have a dream that somebody's attacking them, and I'll tell them, okay, well, in a homeopathic dose, what could be good about that? What could be helpful or healing? And at first they're like, there's nothing helpful or healing about somebody threatening my life. Oh, I agree. In waking life, I agree. But we're talking metaphor now. We're talking symbolism, not in waking life, of course. Okay, symbolically, if you took a little teeny dose of attack, what could be helpful about that? Do I need some, when somebody attacks, they're being aggressive. They are putting all their force into something, they're directing it. So in the littlest dose, do I need to be directing my energies somewhere? In the littlest dose, do I need that forward, almost precise, pointed intention towards something? In the littlest dose, is there some part of me that I can acknowledge that maybe needs to be stopped? Is there a place where I've been a little out of control and need to be stopped? So we can start to listen to the language of the dreams by toning it down that way.
Yeah, it seems much more doable, I would say, less scary. Yeah, but I think this is very, very hard step, because some dreams, it's like it takes a lot of also imagination, I would say, to even admit that there may be something. It's like admitting that also from every bad event that happens in your life, something good can and usually does come out of it, and we really don't like to admit that, because we like to use the black or white, something is bad or something is good, and even the notion of saying, okay, I'm going through something very, very bad, I'm grieving, I lost someone. If you say what could be, I don't even want to say it in this way, what could be
No.
good about it,
Yeah.
because it's like kind of, putting the knife in your heart. But if you can take a few steps back, and I can tell you, for example, in a complicated circumstances, in a country, like in a war, there is a war and people unite. Okay, people unite, people start to work together, people suddenly, everyone is volunteering, everyone is giving away stuff, when usually we cling to our material possessions, and suddenly you say like, wow, there is nothing missing, because everyone can have everything if we just release this. And then you can say, it's hard to say something good is coming out of war, right? It sounds terrible, like, I don't want anyone to take it the wrong way, but I see something
Mhm.
extremely beautiful happening, like people connecting and uniting and helping each other and being selfish. So I feel it's very similar to what you're saying with the dream, that it may be extremely hard to admit to it, and maybe everyone needs to be ready even to, because maybe not always is the time for that, right? Maybe depending on what stage we are, what nightmare we had, or what stage in the life we are, even to be able to look from this perspective on certain events or nightmares, it's maybe some time needs to pass, right? But I do believe that eventually, like, we can, in this micro dose, as you said,
And
homeopathic.
yeah, absolutely. And where we're standing in the moment is very important. If I'm right in the middle of the illness, the war, if my loved one has just passed, I don't need to, it's not my job to find the good in that. No, it's my job right then to feel all the feelings, to get all the love and support I can, and to get through. Um, so the other thing is, in the nightmare awake and the nightmare asleep, our world is shattered.
Yeah.
Something is shattered. We could think of the Tower card and the Tarot.
Mm,
Something is being destroyed, and this is where the spiritual work of the nightmare, the spiritual work of the nightmare is so powerful, because it brings us to that brink of shattering, of a world destroyed. What's really getting destroyed sometimes, as you described so eloquently just now in different words, is our ego attachments, is what's being destroyed, or loosened.
yeah.
We're lucky when we're living in a time, in a moment where we can gently start to dissolve some of our ego attachments and start to feel part of something larger and bigger. Um, so that's part of the work of what a nightmare does. If we allow it to, if we work with it, if we allow it to do its healing work with us, is to acknowledge that sometimes I have to get out of my little ego and open up to the larger love, to the larger possibility, um, to the larger picture, even.
Yeah, totally. Nothing to add here. And coming back to our dream on the paper, what prompts, maybe like an exercise or writing prompt? So let's say someone was to write it down or record it. How would you, what would you recommend for a person? Maybe what question they can ask themselves, or what simple exercise can do? Let's say someone is really in the midst of a lot of things going on, and perhaps they don't have capacity to now be doing long sessions looking in their dream, right? So kind of like a first aid for nightmares in the times of crisis.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I like simple prompts. I like to first just go through with simple prompts. In the stream, I see, go through your senses. You know, I see, I hear, I feel. That can help just get a gentle description or a brief description on the page. Then I wonder, you know, this dream makes me think about, just simple prompts. And then at some point, you might want to ask, um, healing might be coming from, you know, or a helper in this dream might be. So for example, or a sign of life or a sign of hope in this dream might be, maybe there's a plant in the background, maybe there's a book in the background, maybe there's a little bit of light coming through a window in the background. So list anything that might possibly, again, before we were saying the homeopathic dose, if there's something we could expand, something that's maybe just at the edges that we could bring into the center. So you start to notice the helping, the healing imagery in the dream. And then finally, a good prompt is, this dream might be trying to show me, this dream might be trying to tell me. Just open it up, even if no answer comes, just by opening up that question, writing the question down, we're inviting an answer to come in its time.
Yeah, the last question, the last prompt, it's you can use it for any dream, right? But for nightmares, I think it's very crucial to even leave it open as an open question, maybe not even needing to have the final answer. Maybe it will come to you, you know, very fast. Sometimes you just ask this question and suddenly the answer pop up in your head. And sometimes it just stays as an open question, right?
Absolutely.
And would you say that, because I know you also write poetry, so have you ever found like the inspiration or you know the source of your creativity from this type of dreams? Like, do you think that we can transform them also into something completely different, that we can actually use them also in this way for our benefit?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, I could use myself as an example, but there are lots of authors who have used their nightmares for their creative works. One that everyone will have heard of is Stephen King. Um, the woman who wrote the Twilight books, you know, those came from nightmares. Many of my own poems start from nightmares. And they've been personally healing to me, and some of them get published, and I hope that, you know, others who read them find them transformative as well in some way. But yes, the imagery in a nightmare is very compelling. It's packed with symbolism and meaning, and nightmares are universal, so other people beyond ourselves will gain something from reading what we've written, and that's a form of healing too.
Yeah, I didn't even know that all those books were, or those creation were based on nightmares. As we said, I believe there are many more, but maybe, you know, if we don't feel like we can process the nightmare in a more traditional way, you know, maybe if we don't want to use this prompts because we don't want to, we are not ready, but maybe we can create, you know, a poetry or story. And this is also healing. This is also healing. It's a different way, but I truly believe that it's also healing. So kind of invitation here that not necessarily, you know, you need to do it the way everyone else is doing it. But the writing, the journaling, the asking questions, or even creating, like it also extends, of course, to a drawing and painting and making music. Like I think the possibilities are endless, and in this mysterious, a little bit hard to explain ways, it does change something. It does transform the energy of the nightmare, even if the final result is still nightmarish, right? And dark, it still transform the energy, you know, the energy that goes through you. It's not stuck anymore. So the creative process, I think, maybe it's the last thing you are thinking about right now, because you know you are in the midst of something and you say like, oh well, I'm going to paint now, right? But maybe yes, because maybe if your mind is not, so cannot work, right? Maybe it's too much to process. Maybe, as we said, you are not in the stage where you can see the healing coming from the nightmare, but you can use other ways of transforming this energy into something much, just something different.
Yes, Joanna, that's all beautiful. And dance too, because it gets it out of
Right,
your.
dancing.
But
Yeah.
one thing I want to also say while we're having this conversation is if somebody hears this conversation and they're not having nightmares, it's such a good conversation to listen through because a friend might tell you a nightmare or a child.
Mm,
So our children are going to be having a lot of nightmares right now, and they are having a lot of nightmares. So, it's so helpful just to know that you can, just by listening to someone's nightmare, you don't need to analyze it or interpret it. You don't need to have any answers, but you could be the one to just listen with love in your heart. You can be the one to just say, hey, have you thought of making a picture from it or writing it down? You could just say, wow, you know what, don't forget to take especially good care of yourself today because that nightmare rattled you to your bones. Or you can just say, hey, hang in there, because even if you don't know the meaning of it right now, and I have no idea what it means, but just trust, I've heard these dream teachers say that every dream, even a nightmare, has help and healing in it. So you can help each other in this way to remind each other of these things.
yeah, you brought very important point of just sharing. First of all, sharing, like I always invite everyone for dream sharing, and especially in hard circumstances, because it connects people. It brings more empathy. And as you said, there is no need, not necessary need for interpretation. There is just a part of holding space and um, loving listening. And that's more than enough. I witness it myself. Sometimes I would share a dream, hard dream, a nightmare, anxiety dream. I don't expect the other person always to give me any feedback or bring me any answers. I just want to share it. But also maybe by sharing it, maybe you will hear something, back that will surprise you and that will bring you also some relief. So in any direction it goes, it's just really good to share it or to write it down or to process it in a way. Yeah. And I would like to also circle to this mindfulness part of all of it, because um, even in order to be able to sit and write or to be able to imagine as the loving presence maybe when we wake up from the nightmare, or just to have a break during a very hard time when we don't feel safe, and word safe feels like science fiction. What can we do? How can we bring this moment of peace to ourselves when the reality is not, it's not safe, it's not peaceful, it's not loving?
Well, when one is right in the moment of a trauma, it's a different call to action, but some of the same things do and can work depending on the immediate situation. So, for example, sitting and meditating might be off the table.
Yeah, maybe too much.
Talk about feeling unsafe or focusing on the breath could just be counterproductive. Some of the traditional teachings, because our breath is so anxious, it's just making us hyperventilate to focus on the breath. So we need to expand our definitions sometimes. But to remember that this is what we train for, those who train with meditation or mindfulness, we train for moments like this where we come to understand that external safety or security are myths anyway. External safety and security have never been promised to us. What has been promised, what is our birthright, is bliss and joy. That is promised, that is our birthright, and that really does exist inside us no matter what happens outside or whether or not we can access it. So what we can do is we can sometimes find safety within, maybe by practicing a guided meditation that either that we can bring on ourselves or that we listen to it. There's so many wonderful sources right now of pre-recorded guided meditations through apps and so on. But a day-to-day, moment-to-moment, quick and easy one is to tune into one of the five senses. For example, color. To just
Okay.
start to look around your environment and notice color. Like, I see blue. And this is also great when you wake up from a nightmare, by the way. This is very grounding and helpful. Just name the colors you see. I see the green book cover. I see the red eraser tip. I see, my blue glasses, whatever it is. To start to really tune into the senses through color. Sound can be a really good one to listen. Just focus your listening on and your attention on sound. Takes it off your thoughts. Sometimes getting out of our thoughts is what the goal is. The thoughts can be the scariest part. So in a crisis situation, sounds aren't necessarily soothing if there are sirens and so on around, but in other situations, you just notice the sounds in your environment.
Yeah, but
Like,
maybe you are, walking your dog, and this is what you can do. Maybe you're in the park, and exactly you can use that instead of, again, over activating our minds with all the news and things that are happening. As you said, bringing ourselves back to our senses. It's so simple. It's not easy. It's simple, but not easy, I think, unless you've been practicing for a long time. But the idea, the purpose is to bring yourself back to the present moment, right? To say, okay, right here, right now, in this second, like, I am okay, or I am wherever you want to put. But
I like to say this moment, in this
this
moment, I'm okay. In this
moment.
moment,
Exactly.
I can't guarantee, but it's one moment at a time sometimes.
Exactly. I think in a crisis situation, it's one moment at a time. But if we repeat this moment, I am okay, or I am safe, or I am fine, whatever adjective you want to use, it during the day, you realize that you had quite few okay moments. And it kind of also builds this the anchoring yourself, and the staying here and now, that it's so important, because the future is uncertain, as you said, but nobody promised us that it will be other way. And the past is the past, and we can't really do anything about it. And the only time is now, as they say. And yeah, practicing those to our senses, it's very, very important.
It is practice. It really is. It's practice in the calm times so that we're ready for the stressful times. Sometimes we get thrown into a crash course, as you are being now. It's all of us, if we're willing to be awake, are being now.
Yeah.
So just to use some of the language of dreams, being awake is part of the trick. Being awake and aware. Sometimes we need to escape into sleep. But the most that we can be awake and aware and alert to our physical bodily needs, our emotional needs, what's going on around us. And also meaning. We were talking earlier about finding meaning in things like an illness or a tragic situation, a war. I don't always believe that there is meaning in everything. Some days I do, some days I don't. Some days that idea just makes me crazy. But this is what I do believe. And Viktor Frankl has been a good teacher, in terms of somebody whose books I've read on this, which is making meaning and finding meaning. So again, I don't know that meaning is guaranteed. I'm not sure about that. But living a life where dreamwork teaches us to find the meaning, or to make the meaning, to take a meaningful approach. And I think I read that I think it was Viktor Frankl who said that even during the Holocaust, he survived it in part by rehearsing what he was going to teach, or seeing it as if he was in a class that he was teaching, and how he would instruct his students to interpret and find meaning in it. This is the language of dream workers too. So we can practice finding meaning, and therefore we create meaning. We make meaning out of things that seem utterly meaningless.
Well, that's a really, really good one. Thank you for sharing this perspective. I think it can help many people that, as you said, they can't possibly comprehend what could be the meaning of all of this, all of that's happening right now, again, on personal and collective level. And before we wrap up, I would like to ask you one more thing, because we spoke about, nightmares and heavy dreams and stuff, but would you give an advice for people to set themselves up for having some good and beautiful dreams during this hard time? Because yes, the nightmares comes because we're going through trauma, and they are natural reaction of our systems to process, and they help us. We already know that, but we can also set ourselves up for having more beautiful, calm, good, restful nights, even during the hard times, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And spontaneously, some good dreams will come. When I was feeling a lot of intensity of anxiety in the past couple of weeks, I had an absolutely stunningly beautiful dream that I just kept sharing with people, because I wanted us to remember that beauty exists too. And I sometimes, a therapist will call that a compensatory dream. It's compensating for all the difficulties around us. But I was calling it a complementary dream, meaning it completes the picture around us, that even when there is hatred and war and gruesomeness, at the same time, beauty and love and all that exists. So to complete the picture, the dreams can do that too. But how to set ourselves up for them? They will come spontaneously, the good dreams, and we deserve them. We can celebrate them, enjoy them, and share them with each other, because they make people feel good. You don't need to interpret them. It's been shown that, first of all, journaling before bed can help to have better dreams, because we're sort of offloading some of the anxiety and the fear. Also, we're facing it. The other thing, and the best possible thing to do before bed to invite better dreams, if they're possible in that time, is to list things you're grateful for. Again, not easy when we're going through hard things, and I advise people to start really small. You might be grateful for a very little thing, like I'm in bed, or I heard a beautiful sound today, or my nose doesn't hurt. Anything, anything you can be grateful for, as little or as large. That will help set you up for good dreams. If you are a person who prays, that helps too. Or there are various versions of prayer. Prayers can be, well, a gratitude list is a prayer. Thinking of things and people you love is a prayer. And extending good wishes to other people is a prayer, and to yourself and your own heart. All those things help a lot with setting us up for a good rest and hopefully sweet dreams.
Beautiful. I love especially the gratefulness list. And as you said, there is nothing that's too small to go on this list. I mean, again, when sometimes you ask people what they're grateful for, they will come with these big things, these big accomplishments, this, successes. But actually, as you said, like, oh, I have a bed, or I have 5 hours or 6 hours or 7 hours to sleep, oh, someone is sleeping next to me, or my cat is there in the house, For me, also animals, it's so grateful for having the animals. And yeah, nothing is too small, and it does rewire your brain. It does set the direction before you go to sleep. I think the worst thing you can do is to watch the news till you fall asleep, because
Agreed.
This is so bad. And one side, it's like we want to be in control. We have this false sense of control when we watch the news constantly, but it's so detrimental to our well-being, for our souls, for our brains. It's just so detrimental. So I said it one time and I'll say it again. please try do not to watch the news before you go to sleep. Instead of, you know, write down or in your head, go over the gratitude list, or however small it is. Maybe it was a cup of coffee, or maybe whatever, a message that you got from a friend that's asking how you're doing, right? It's nothing is being taken for granted. And hopefully you can get the rest, better rest, and beautiful dreams. But I also, as Tzivia said, they can also come just spontaneously. So just be open. I think also something, the last thing I want to say is like to even be open to receive the dreams, even to say like, I'm open to receive the dream. I'm open for good night's sleep. I deserve good night's sleep, because in the times like this, we may feel like it's not a good time to have a good dream, right? But it should be contrary, like we deserve good dream and we deserve good night's sleep, so we can be the best version of ourselves to serve the world, you know, to shine our light. So yeah.
I love that.
So would you like tell the listeners like where they can find more information about you, about your work, if they would like to reach out to you, where they can find that?
Sure. People can see my name on the screen. So if you Google my name, you'll find my website. My website's actually called Third House Moon, but I think I'm the only one with that name. And also, there are people who are willing and happy and ready to offer dream work and free dream work to those who are being directly affected right now. I'm one of those people. I know there are many others. So reach out to us. You can even reach out to me if you want to know who other people are who are offering free dream work, if you're looking for it in a different language or a different style. Reach out for help, for support. But yes, please, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to contact me or our fabulous host today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tzivia. It was a beautiful conversation. And I hope it will bring some hope in these dark times, and this remembering that we can do something about our well-being, about our sleep, about our dreams, even when it seems impossible. There are still things that can set up us for healing. Again, nightmares may require treatment, may require psychotherapies. I'm not saying that, you know, just writing down your dream one time will solve your nightmares. I'm not saying that. I don't want anyone to think that, but I do believe that taking those steps, that opening yourself, is already putting you on the healing path. So if you would like to give it a try, I really recommend taking some action. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes,
Thank you
thank
for
you
your
for
time.
beautiful work.